see some of our old forum friends. It's like old forum week here, to see them again, and new friends. I'm Lana Rocco, Director of the Center for Community Engagement. We host this event along with our host community this year, Emerado. To begin with, we are going to start with presentation of the colors by the Grand Forks Air Force Base. And the Star Spangled Banner will be sung by Bob Green, who's commander of the American Legion Post number 6. So if you please rise and remain standing until the color guard.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the brave.
We certainly want to give our thanks to Bob Green and to our color guard and to our friends and colleagues and neighbors at the Grand Forks Air Force Base. They have been terrific partners to work with as we work with the community of Emerado. At this time, I would like to ask the mayor of Emerado, Dan Hunman, to come and give his words of greeting.
Well, I just want to welcome everybody to the city of Emerado. This event has been a long time in the works by our board of Emerado and this community working all together about a year. Hopefully it'll be a really good day of connecting with others and other communities. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mayor Henneman. Emerado's just been a pleasure to work with. I do want to give them our great thanks. All of the volunteers, the park board, and the mayor have just really stepped up to the plate. I think there was a point at which you thought maybe it was too big of a stretch, and you did. Look what you pulled off. So this is wonderful to see happen in the community. We, as I said, I also want to thank our Air Force Base partners, Tim Flack, wherever you are, Tim, has been great to help us. The Public Affairs Office. We have a base tour coming up for those who are registered, pre-registered. Thank you to them for opening their doors to us. We also have a planning committee to thank, which is every year made up of UND people and host community people. Our co-chairs have been Doug Munsky from UND and Joanne Renfro from Emerado. All of their names are listed on the back of the program, but I think we should ask them to stand up so you know who they are and you can thank them. Please stand up. connect. For our people who've been here, some of you have been 4, 5, 6, 7 years coming to our forum. So you may be wondering, though, if you're new to this, what is this activity? Well, this activity started about 8 years ago when a team of UNT faculty and students decided that we really needed to figure out what kind of connections, what kind of information is needed in North Dakota, and how could UND be involved with that? So we did research around the state, talked to people, did focus groups, and this is a result of it. People said, we want to get together in person. And we know in North Dakota, and I know this is true in northwestern Minnesota, your personal connections and your conversations are really important to you. They also said we want things in print, so we have a journal that we follow up with the forum with, and that put those resources and conversations in print, because people said, I want to be able to turn to my shelf and get that when I need that resource. And they said we want it online. We want resources online for that just-in-time moment when it's like, oh, I wonder what's happening with this, where could they find out that? They want to be able to go somewhere. So this forum comes as a direct result of that research. We started in Grand Forks, we've done Rugby, Spirit Lake at Jenkins Michigan Community College, Mountain, Buffalo, Warren, and now here in Emerado. Last year our theme was sustainable communities. This year is networked communities. And you're going to spend a day thinking about how our communities can be networked, how those of us living in our communities can be part of those networks, and maybe how we can think even broader about coming together, to work together. I want to thank our sponsors. Their names are listed on the back of our program, but I do want to give special recognition to the Association of North Dakota Geographers, the Virginia George Inheritance Fund, and the Emerado Arvilla Lions, who stepped up to fund our live music this afternoon at the Ice Cream Social. I want to thank our Center for Community Engagement staff and students, Pam Burks, our office manager, and then our students, Jason Miller, who are Narda Hamilton and Taylor Hansen. Today we have student volunteers, Kylie Wright, Nicole Smith, Shwazette Z, joining us to help with notes and knowledge. We'll have some special guests you'll be meeting along the way today. President Kelly from the university will be here later. Colonel Paul Bowman will be here from the Grand Forks Air Force Base, the commander. We have mayors all over the place. It's just terrific to meet so many mayors from small communities, and Mayor Mike Brown from Grand Forks will be here in a bit. We have a chair of the Spirit Lake Tribe, Russ McDonald, joining us also today. So many important people, and that's every one of you here today to be part of that. So let me tell you a little bit about what's in the packet so you know what's coming up and how you can get the most out of your day. If you start with the left-hand side, Emerado has provided us with some pieces about their community and their businesses. You have an evaluation form, that bright yellow there. We don't let you leave unless you fill it out. So I really hope that you will fill this out and leave it before the end of the day. And there is a basket at the registration table. Our newsletter that many of you received, which is the background about this particular event in Emerado. And finally, behind that on the left side is consent information from our institutional review board. We use these forums as a way to learn. We document them, we do transcripts and notes, and we put it together so we can give that back to you. So our university has approved us doing that, and we let you know what we're doing here, what we're documenting, and hope that you will appreciate, or will be able to receive and appreciate the materials that we create as a result of the forum. On the right-hand side, we've got a little brochure about our project, so you can learn more. We've got a great green thing in there, exhibitors. These are the groups outside in the hallway. I would like to point out that the Art and Design Department is doing their exhibit over in the community center, and we'll be going over there in the afternoon. And actually, it isn't a UND Art Collections exhibit. It turns out to be a faculty exhibit. Kim Fink and Paul Hurd's work is represented over in the community center, so I think you'll really enjoy those art pieces. So take a look at what's here. I would like to point out that communities looking for grant opportunities. The Bush Foundation has a new grant program, Community Innovation, a small grant program up to $10,000 a larger one, $10,000 to $200,000. And we have information at the Center for Community Engagement table, so please take those. I know many communities are looking for funding sources. A special exhibit in the science room, you might have seen it already across the hall. It's by our Unmanned Aerial Systems program, our Center for Excellence there, and they have some, I think they have an example of a drone in there. Has anybody been in here yet to see the drone? So please avail yourself of that. Then you have a bright blue piece of paper on your right-hand side. That's the biographies of people who are participating today. Unfortunately, didn't have everybody in here, but anyone who's on a program. And what we wanted to do is make sure you had contact information. So when you leave here today, you go, you know, that person on that panel, or that particular mayor, or that speaker, I really want to get back to them. If that was an interesting topic, I have something to say, well, we provided you contact information. Again, that's all part of how can we be well connected. The white piece of paper with the green stamped across it is something that we prepared at the Center for Community Engagement. One side says community members, the other faculty and students. We want to make sure everybody leaves today with some ideas about connecting, and we've left space on the bottom for you to add your own great idea that you walked in here with or that you come up with when you're here listening to this. One of the top ideas that we have for communities, and those of you who are volunteers in your communities, is that first one, maximize your community's website. I think we're going to be seeing Hebron and Bowdoin's websites this afternoon. They really are good examples of a community's website. We often are looking for information from communities and can't necessarily find it. So that's our first advice is you might want to look at your website and make sure it's doing its heavy lifting for you. On the other side for faculty and students, and I'm so excited to see so many students and faculty here, I know some will be joining us later as well. I think the top advice there is number one, get informed about your community so you really can know what's going on. And then number 6, bring what you know and the academic knowledge that's at UND to your community and add it into the mix because we're all better if we bring together our community knowledges and our knowledges from the university. So I hope you will consider how to do that. So your assignment there is to fill these out, finish them out, come up with some ideas that you add to this. Your other assignment is to make new connections while you're here. So I'm going to ask you to try to leave today making at least 3 new connections you wouldn't have made if you didn't come. And you have a little sticky pad with you, get people's names and contact information, exchange words, because that's what this is all about. If you're a community member, find students, find faculty and students, please find community members and exchange that information. And finally, your program, just to run through how the day is going to look. The first page is just the overview of it, so it's your cheat sheet about how to navigate which sessions where. And then inside are the details with all the participants. So what we're doing right now is our opening session. We will be starting with a plenary right here and having a coffee and networking break after that. Then at 10:30, you have an option if you signed up and pre-registered for the airways tour. That will be leaving from door 1, and we have a bus that will take you there. The rest of you, the others will be in here, and we will have our other session where we've got mayors from a number of communities, small to large, talking about cooperating. There will be lunch here, and our menu features a specialty from this area. It's bison, in Bison's Sloppy Joe's. There is a vegetarian option available for those who like that, with chip salad and cookies. We really appreciate our host community tapping into their businesses to make this lunch possible. There'll be some time for networking and exhibits. We want to make sure you have that time. And then the breakout sessions will start again at 1:30. And here you get a choice again. You can be in here. Hebron and Bowdoin will be talking about their communities, and we'll be breaking out to talk about how they might use networking in some additional ways. We will have a bus that can take you over to the community center for the second session, which will feature 2 projects. And then we'll tell you more about that in the program detail, the Grand Skies project and the Grand Works County Prairie project. So some UND and community partners. And they're going to talk about how you put these partnerships together. How does that work? So that might be really helpful for some of you in your communities to be thinking about how to make these partnerships. And then we will close at the community center. So if you have left here to go to that session, you'll be right where you need to be. And we will have a bus here that can take anyone. It's about, what is it, a walk maybe? To walk? Yeah, it's a nice walk, no rain or snow. And, but if you like the bus, we will have a bus out here at 3:15 that can drive you over to the community center. You'll be able to see the art exhibit by the art design faculty. And there will be live music, Ball Creek Quartet. That's a 4-person a cappella group from Track Works who are awesome. And Ice Cream Sundays with Talkies by the Emerado Deer Queen. Doesn't get any better than that. We're going to want to stay to the end of that. Does anyone have any questions, or do you have a sense of how things are going to go today? That sounds great. Well then, that is to the right. Outside the door. And the coffee and refreshments, there's donuts, and so forth down at the end of hall. Always important. At this point, I want to make sure everybody's got one of those little things, a clicker. When you came in, does everybody have a clicker? Do we need the one from Dave Haggard that's done a great clicker distributor? If you need one, we are prepared to get them out to you. The students all went, oh, we knew that, we do that in class all the time. If you're not a student, you don't know that we use these now in a lot of classes where you get to say what you think, and then it shows up. It's going to be fun for you, I hope. So I'm going to turn this plenary session over to Lois Bachelor from the UND Entrepreneurship Program, and take it away. Enjoy your day. Thanks so much.
Good morning and welcome. I was astonished when I walked into the door and kept running into people that I knew. I got to the end of the hallway thinking I was simply going to have a bottle of water, and I run into someone that I've known for 20 years. So network community indeed. And I would encourage you, my students have a standing assignment to meet 3 new people every week. And boy, this is an ideal opportunity to do just that. There are many organizations and community members who understand that it is the social connections that we have that aid us in realizing the goals, objectives for our communities. The difficulty is creating continuous creation and growth. The difficulty is including and incorporating new people into our community. The difficulty is not only maintaining the networks that we have, but growing new organic networks every day. It's work. It's the care and feeding of our community. As North Dakota and Minnesota grow and have a booming economy, there are a lot of questions that we start to ask about our communities and our growth. How do we manage this appropriately? How do we prioritize where we want to go as a community? And how do we make sure that all of those voices are heard? These are all very difficult questions that communities have to navigate. You throw into that mix of funding, neighborhood difficulties, the rise of crime, and suddenly the formula is not as clear as we were told. Well, very luckily, we have someone with us here today who studies exactly this. Ms. Atkinson has been serving for more than 10 years as a city planner and certified. And her questions about how do communities navigate these types of questions has precipitated a specific question. And that question is, how are we networked? And what are the benefits of those networks? So as we explore this question today, we're going to be taking you through a process of her research and things that she discovered on that path. Periodically, you will be asked to respond to certain questions. So what I'd like you to do is, right now, take out your clipboard. Now, we do use these on University of Northwood campus, and they have been available for about 15 years. So we can have a lot of fun with these particular kinds of devices. They help with quizzes, they help with instantaneous recognition of concepts, and a lot of other things that we do. So on your clicker, you're going to notice it's very much like a phone. The first response is 1 or A. We have selected all alphabetical responses, so we're going to be looking at the letters on this particular clicker. If you enter a response and the small light flashes red, that is not a valid response. If it flashes green, your response has been recorded. Oh, but wait, I now see further down the list, there's another option that suits me better. You can change your answer as long as you do so before we will approach the next slide. So we'll provide you that opportunity to think about your responses. Throughout the presentation, I would like you to frame your responses through the lens of the community to which you belong. So if you're from Emerado, we will give you that option of local resident. If you are from Grand Forks, we will give you that option also. If you are specifically from the University of North Dakota, either a student, a faculty, or embedded in some manner within the campus, we would urge you to select that option. And throughout the presentation, maintain that lens, not so much of your private personal community, but of the community that you have selected early on in this presentation. So our first question, where are you from? Everyone got green lights? Excellent. So if you can go on the bottom corner, the bottom left-hand corner, you can go, and then interruption.
This is a smart group, they're figuring it out right away. We're good. Anybody else need one? Is it working?
As we go through this session, Lisa's going to be presenting her information, the data she collected for her master's thesis. I'm simply going to help her navigate some of the questions and prioritize the questions that may arise throughout the presentation. So when you have a question, please just raise your hand. We'd like everyone to be able to hear, so we will bring you a microphone so that you are able to speak clearly and everyone can hear your question before we proceed on. We only have a very limited amount of time because we do want to proceed on with the rest of the day. But the data that Lisa has collected is truly outstanding. So at this time, please welcome Lisa.
Thank you. All right, we had 88 responses and a fair number of UND, 17% Emerado, 48% UND, 7% Grand Forks, 24% North Dakota, and 5% Minnesota. So welcome everyone. The title of my presentation is Community Networks, Building Social Capital in Emerado, North Dakota. Just to give you an overview of what we'll be talking about today, we're going to start out by talking about community capitals and social capital in particular. An aspect of that is networking, including bridging and bonding capital. Then we'll be discussing the social network analysis of Emerado, including the research that was conducted. We'll talk about the research methods and the research findings. So first of all, community capitals. There are 7 community capitals identified by Emory and Flora, and they include human capital, which is basically the people and improving the skills of the people in the community. The next element is cultural capital, which is your traditions, the language, creativity, those sorts of aspects. natural capital, which deals with your natural resources, things like trees and water. The next element is built capital, and that's the human-made systems, your sewer and water, those sorts of things. Financial capital includes money invested to create new resources for the community. And political capital, which includes access to power and the organizations in the community, and also the connections to power brokers. So just kind of a quick overview of the different aspects of community capitals. When you have improvements from one area of the community capitals, you start to see what's called a spiraling effect, where each of the areas start to improve and you create some momentum. So it's great to just start in one area and you start making some community change. So the focus that we're going to look at next is social capital. Social capital is the connections between people, basically the social glue that makes things happen, that makes change happen. And it includes elements like mutual trust, reciprocity, groups, collective identity, fancy words that basically pertain to how you relate and interact with other people. So what is networking? A lot of us think that networking, when you first just think of the word networking, you think perhaps of the people that you relate to on a daily basis. And that's definitely a great first step, but I encourage you to think a little bit wider. And not only think of the people that you know directly and that you communicate with regularly, but also the people that you communicate with less frequently. And not only those people, those two groups of people, but also the people that those people communicate with. Then you're starting to really see how your connections can have an impact. And so when you start to look at those connections, then you're really looking at your full network. So, clicker question. Based on the information presented, how connected would you say your physical community is? A, well connected. B, somewhat connected. C, not well connected. Or D, don't know or not sure.
So click now. Anyone need a clicker? Are they working?
Consider if you had difficulty in your community, something in your neighborhood, would you know whom to call if you had that particular problem? How would you connect with organizations that would aid you? This is another question you might ask when answering this question.
Has everyone submitted your responses? All right. Here's our results.
Somewhat connected, all right. Yes, at 45% it's somewhat connected. Now, that obviously leaves some room for improvement, so I'm very glad that Lisa's here today. Thank you, Lisa.
I wonder if you could just go back and review those, so those people over here could hear what the percentages were.
Sure. There's 25% for well connected, 46% somewhat connected, 17% say not well connected, and 12% don't know or not sure. All right, so the research that I conducted was a social network analysis for Emerado, North Dakota. This is part of a larger research project, which I'm choosing to focus today on these aspects to identify the social networks in Emerado and look at the areas of strength in Emerado's social network, and also look at the characteristics of the people with the strongest social networks. So, research methods. This is a qualitative analysis project, meaning it relies on data, on conversations, not so much on the numbers aspect of things. It uses grounded theory, which means that the data is organized by coding and by memos. Coding means that when you say a sentence or a paragraph of text, then I would make up a couple of words that sort of summarize what you're saying, so that when I go back through and compare the different interviews, I can quickly compare and contrast. Memos is another way that helps with that, because you summarize the data and make comparison between the different interviews. So I actually created a memo based on each interview, which sort of said, interview 1 talked about this, interview 2 talked about this, which is different from interview 1 in this way and similar in that way. So that was sort of the process. There were 25 interviews conducted. Most of them were between a half hour and an hour long. It was a snowball sample, meaning that the first person interviewed mentioned people at the end of the interview who they suggested that I interview, and then I contacted those people to interview, and so that's how the names for the interviewees were obtained. As far as data analysis, any implied or specified relationships were added to the network list for the interview, and that data was then entered into a social network analysis software, the Sentinel Visualizer, by FMS Advanced Systems Group, and they were generous to allow me an extended trial to complete the research. So I'm going to provide just a basic overview on some of the terms that we'll be using today. The first is nodes or actors, and this is simply the people, the businesses, the organizations that people interact with. The links or connections are basically visually shown as lines linking two different people or businesses or organizations. And then the tiers or the levels are, the best way to explain this is just to sort of go into it. Person A in the middle with the darker circle is the example person. So we'll just say that's me, for example. And the people that I know is person B and person E. So that's my first tier network. Those are the people that I interact most frequently or that I interact with either on an infrequent or frequent basis. And then you can see person B has two people in their network. And so that would be my second tier. And so I still have access to those people because I can ask person B, gosh, I'm looking for someone who knows something about banking. I've got this issue I need to deal with. And that person will be able to kind of point me in the right direction. So in terms of strength, you can measure network strength in a variety of ways, and we'll go into this more a little bit later, but just by way of giving you a quick overview, person B has the strongest network because they've got the most links. And person E has the weakest network because they have only one link. You're looking for people to be well connected, would be strongest, and then when you have a stronger network, you're able to withstand people leaving the network without the entire structure breaking down. So what does well connected mean? There's elements like bridging, that are the links outside the community, bonding, the close relationships, and then centrality. And there's 4 different elements of centrality, which is degree centrality, which we kind of talked a little bit about, and then between the centrality, closeness, centrality, and eigenvalue. So in bridging and bonding, bonding capital are your strong ties. Those are the people you talk to all the time, your neighbors, your friends, your relatives, the people that if you need to borrow a couple bucks, will gladly borrow it to you. If you need a ride to wherever, you could call them up. Those are your closest connections. They're the people who talk to you on a regular basis, and they know a lot of the same information that you know, and they learned it probably around the same time that you learned it. But they're very helpful in helping survive daily life. Bridging capital, by contrast, is made up of what are called weak ties. Not that they're weak at all in any means, they're actually very, very strong, but they're weak in terms of the way that you know them is less well. And they're your connections outside the community, the people you don't interact with as frequently. They are great for learning new information because they have access to different information than you do. And they help you get ahead in life. They are where you might find information about job leads, about the question you have about banking, or any kind of more questions that you just haven't require information that you don't have direct access to yourself. So, clicker question. Based on the description of bridging and bonding, which would you say is the strongest influence in your community? A, bridging, those are your weak links, the people you don't know as well. Or bonding, which is B, the people that you know most about, your friends, your relatives, your neighbors. And C is don't know or not sure. So again, bridging are the people you know not quite as well, and bonding are the people you know best.
Think about the bonds that you have in a community. There are some people that you socialize with on a regular basis, you see almost on a daily basis, and then there are those individuals that when you do see them, they still garner a warm hug and a fantastic greeting, but they're not necessarily in your close bonded circle. That bridging capital is how we bridge outside and get beyond our most intimate and close social relations.
So Lisa, if I understand this right, I'm not a very quick study here, so help me out. The bonding would be lots, maybe really close ties in a community. A lot of people know each other, their family and friends. But the bridging then would be their connections across those bonds.
That's correct.
So you're thinking about your community, and are there lots of ways that our family and friend networks are connected to each other, connected to resources, and connected outside the community?
That's correct.
So that's kind of what you're asking about?
That's
Would you
correct.
judge your community as having more of those, the bonds, lots of family friend kind of networks, and maybe not as much connections across them and connections outside? Or maybe they've got a lot of connections outside and between, but people really don't know each other very well. You don't have a lot of family and friends. Other people don't have a lot of family and friends. Does that make sense? That helps me understand it. Okay.
Okay, so for the adults. Gotta give our responses. Anyone else? Okay.
Can everyone see the screen also on this side? The lights are okay? Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, 37% say bridging capital, 51% say bonding capital, and 12% say don't know or not sure. What we're going to do next is look at how the groups in Emerado interact. Emerado seems to be higher in bonding overall, and there is some bridging and overlap between organizations. The city council, the park district, and the fire department seem to have the most influence within the community. Then there's a couple of sub-site groups. The old town people that have been here longer, the retirees, which are generally from the Air Force Base and usually less than retirement age, oftentimes. And some of them have gone back to work in different fields. And then the bar group, which is the group that sort of hangs out at the bar. Then in the upper right, you've got sort of another set of people that have a little bit of overlap. The older people in the community, the non-bar people that choose to not associate as much with the bar people, and then the churches and the church groups. Kind of in that center portion, we've got the Lions Club, which seems to have a little bit of overlap between the city council and the park district. Now granted, all of this is my perspective based on interview results. And then looking down in the lower right, the trailer court houses approximately half of the population, and it also houses approximately half of the students for the school. So there's obviously some overlap with this school district. The school has school board and PTO boards, and there's some overlap with the farmers because of the other half of the population of the school district basically is composed of people in the surrounding community, the farmers, and there's also school board members who are farmers. And then obviously the farmers and the elevator have some overlap, and there's some overlap between the elevator and the city council. And then sort of off in the far corner is the young people, and there tends to be a group of people that just don't choose to get involved in the community, whether they're busy with their own young families or busy with their own work life. They're just less involved, and so that's kind of what we've seen in the community. Breaking this down so you can kind of get a better visual perspective, we've got 3 people to sort of look at their networks. Person number 1 is more of a bonding person. They're locally involved. They have been fairly new in the community, less than 3 years, or about 3 years. They have a high degree of interaction, a high degree of local influence, but a low regional involvement. Person number 2 has approximately the same number of connections. They have 25 versus 26. They have a medium length of time, about 10 years in the community. They have a high degree of community interaction, a medium degree of local influence, and a high degree of regional involvement. And then person number 3 is the young person, which is pretty much low across the board. So person number 1, this is the first line network. This is the people that they talk to, the organizations that they get involved with. And you'll notice with this one, they're pretty much all local groups and organizations. hit 26 nodes, which are the individual icons, the individual people, businesses, and organizations, and 25 links, which are the lines. When you add the links and the lines, the networks of each of those people, this is what you see. This is the second line network of that individual. It encompasses 97 individual businesses and organizations, and provides 203 different links in between those entities. You see there's one big circle. Those are the people that know and interact together, so that's where we get the perspective that this person is high in bonding. There's no central node, but you'll notice around the outside perimeter circles, there are a variety of smaller circles with one person in the center. And that central person serves as a bridge between the rest of the community and those 5 or 4 or however many people are in that surrounding circle. The third tier, a person number 1, looks like a lot of other people's 4th tiers because it basically encompasses the entire network. It's 159 nodes and 331 links. And the full network encompasses 159 nodes and 336 links. Person number 2 has a very similar first line, but their second line looks dramatically different. Instead of having that one big central circle that doesn't have a node in the middle of it, you can see just that kind of middle circle that doesn't have a node in the middle of it. That is their core circle, the people that bond together. And then they've got huge bridging circles off on the sides. Because they're so well connected, from that perspective, their third tier also encompasses almost the entire network, even though their second tier had far fewer links in it than the first person's. And then we've got the young person. This particular young person happens to have a really good person that they're linked to, so that even though they're linked to only one person, they've got a great network for their second and third tiers. Had this person been linked to another person who only had one link, they would have just 2 people in their second line. So that really shows you how having people who are well connected in your network really can make a big difference. So, clicker question. For this one, we've got a little bit of a description for each of the responses. And I want to wait just for a moment before you put your response in so we can give you the examples of what these entities are. So the question is, when wanting to get involved, how should a new resident get engaged in your community? Through friends, neighbors, and contacts, based on issues, taking action, solving problems, getting involved with city boards, getting involved through institutions such as schools, firefighters, being a firefighter, or church involvement, organizations such as the PTO, Kiwanis, United Way, or Lions, common places, meeting up with people at clubs and coffee shops, or through their place of employment. So here's the question list. And again, the question is, when wanting to get involved, how should a new resident start to get engaged in your community? A, friends, B, issues, C, institutions, D, organizations, E, common places, or F, work. If someone wants to get involved, how would you direct them?
Is this the easiest way or how I would tell them?
How in your community you think it would work best? She asked what does should mean? And it's answer based on how you think in your community it would work best for someone to get involved.
If you're thinking about your relations on University of North Dakota campus, how should individuals become involved when they first come to campus? What is the best way for them to become involved? If you're thinking about your community where you live, you could think about what would be the best way for them to realize the best network possible with the shortest steps. And again, bear in mind the original lens that you selected on the very first slide. Where are you from?
Anyone who hasn't responded to the first one up? All right. 21% said friends, 10% said issues, 26% said institutions,
you tell us a little bit about what you think that means? I mean, like common places, do you think maybe that means not every community has lots of them, so there wouldn't be a good place to hang out at a coffee shop and think you're gonna meet some people?
Certainly.
On the other hand, maybe you thought, oh, we've got some really, maybe in Grand Forks, and we have UND, and that's a great way to get connected. Take a class, come to an event, you can get connected. So it really says something about how you're thinking of your community then, and what's available.
That's right.
Anything else about that that you can tell us, how you would interpret those?
I think it's interesting that friends are so highly ranked, because sometimes it really depends on the quality of the friendships and who you're interacting with. Such as like when we talked about that young person, and in that instance, they had a really good network. And so it's really interesting that friends rank that highly. I wouldn't have guessed that.
I find it interesting that work is not more highly rated. As an individual who works at the university, I meet hundreds of people every semester. So I find it interesting that work is not more highly rated as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I wonder if that might be influenced by the fact that a lot of times people work outside of the community, and so then perhaps the people that you interact with either live outside of the community that they work, or you live outside of the community that you work, which then would make it more difficult, I think. All right, moving forward. Excuse me. Can you say something about why you think the issues are so low? What was that, Marcia? The question was why are issues so low? I'm not entirely sure. That seems like it would be a really good way to gain access into the
Just wondering, in terms of your own research, are people aware of issues in the communities? Or do they only, I mean, it seems that issues would come before so many other things.
She said that it seemed that issues would come before so many other things, and that's true. I think I tend to agree with you on that.
I think issues might be aligned with organizations, because there's a lot of organizations that have missions to take care of issues in the community, so maybe that's it. I don't know.
That's a great point. She had said that issues sort of almost overlap organizations, because a lot of times you maybe work through the organizations to resolve issues. It's a really great point. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Well, I was just gonna say, coming from a small community, you have to get to know people and the town before you even know what the issues are. And if you're new in the town, you're not gonna be too successful running for city council or the school board and knowing the issues because you haven't been there long enough.
That's
So
great.
that's a community issue.
Certainly. She said that if you're new to the community, you may not know what the issues are. And so once you've been in the community, maybe that's when you get more involved in the issues aspect of things. Did I summarize that right?
What I found in my small town is that it's a challenge to communicate with members of our community. We have the cable TV that scrolls across the bottom, and that reaches a certain element of our community. And we've discovered now that the younger people, we need to start being more interactive with Facebook, because that's what they're looking at. And then the communication will even trickle down to, I'm sure, another medium of some kind too, but we as a city have to be more engaged with that too.
She's saying that the community her community's having difficulty reaching all aspects of the community. They've got cable TV, fortunately, in their area, so they reach some of the population that way. But they're finding that Facebook is helpful for reaching young people, and that there are obviously probably new things on the horizon to also improve communication. And that was something that I noticed in my research as well. I kind of asked those sorts of questions, and unfortunately can't talk through every aspect of my research at this point, but that was definitely something that came up. Emerado's got a new Facebook page that's really been helping with bridging that gap with the younger population.
That was going to be
a question that I asked. How many, by just a quick show of hands, how many people utilize the social media for their news or information regarding their community? Fantastic. That might be a question we include next time.
Okay, so moving on. This graphic should look unfamiliar. It's exactly the same. It's now got the title Degree Centrality. So this is the first of those 4 types of measures of how well-networked a community is. And it's basically a numbers counting. So person number B has 3, so their first line has 3 individuals, so that's how they would be, is they have 3. And then person E has 1, and so they're the weakest, and person 3 is the strongest. When you get a little bit more of a complex network, you gotta do a little more counting, but the person with the highest degree of centrality is Alice, which is the orange circle, and then the second most is Raphael with the yellow circle. So you can start to see once you really start expanding that circle, it's great to have a computer software do that counting for you. So what are the characteristics of people with high degree of centrality? Generally, they're active communicators, they're well connected, they have a high degree of influence, power, and information. They're deal makers, they know how to get things done. There's multiple ways that they use to reach their goals, making them less dependent on others. But again, the quality of connections matter. Even if you've got 25 or more networked people, or linked people, if they don't have a lot of links, then your network is not going to be as strong. So in Emerado, this is the breakdown of the people that have the 10 highest number of nodes. The first person is a firefighter, the second is a school board PTO member, the third is a business owner, the fourth is a park board member, the fifth and sixth are city administration, meaning mayor or city council, the seventh is park board, the eighth is park board, the ninth is school board PTO member,